Hi, and welcome to another AI in C# video, again on the Model Context Protocol. Today's video is about dynamic MCP tool descriptions, because this came about from a mail I received from one of the viewers of the channel called Brian, and he mentioned that he is making an MCP server at the moment, and he had a question about it being possible to load the descriptions on the fly, in his case from a JSON file, but it could also be from a database or whatever you have your descriptions in. So it makes it easier to not need to rebuild and deploy. So he sent that, and I actually have had the same ideas on things. We will go into a second on what the problem is and how we solve it. But I will just assume that it's not at startup we want to run the JSON file and put it on. We actually just mean it whenever someone connects to via the MCP server, they should get it from the MCP file. But let's see some code that is actually up and running here, where I just made a normal MCP server. There's a few pieces of code up here and down here that we don't need to talk about at the moment, but we just have an MCP server where we say with tools from assembly, and our tools is just a tool 1 and a tool 2. And here comes the problems. If we want to have descriptions on these tools, and descriptions are important for an LLM to know when to call a specific tool, we need to put them in as descriptions. And as we all know, descriptions requires constants here. We can't have it on the fly, get it from a file or something like that. And the similar, if we want to put a description on one of the parameters of the tool, we also need to use the description. Because if we were just to do it at startup, we could just make tools with tools instead of with tools from assembly, and on the fly write the description here. So here I have just a small delegate I put on, but it will still be at startup. It will still be that builder.services.add and so on only run at startup, and here we could have grabbed it from some JSON, but again we would need to deploy again if it were to change. So whenever I connect to this MCP server, I will get back the fixed description with the fixed parameter description, the extra tool, and over here. So now I have deployed, meaning I've just run F5 in this case, but if I wanted to change anything, I would need to go into my code, change it here, rebuild the code, and redeploy. And that's bad if you are running in a big system where you need to, deployment is a rather big thing, and you just want to fix a little thing so an AI on the fly can understand what is going on better. It's a little like prompt engineering, prompt tweaking. So we want to have this happen. And it is actually possible, else there wouldn't have been a video probably. But what we need to do is we need to, on the fly, change the tools. And we can do that by putting in a request filter. So let me go through what this does by just setting a breakpoint here. But the request filters we have used before, you have seen the dynamic tools video. We used it there as well. But in our case here, essentially we're just adding some more filters, and we're saying whenever the list tools are being called, meaning whenever a tool here connects, it will do a tools list and get the information, and that's what it shows here with the descriptions and names. And we're essentially just hooking into that and modifying it before we send it to the client. And in order for us to do this, there was a talk about a JSON file, and that JSON file is here in its raw format. So we say tool 1 should have this new description, tool 2 should have this new description, this parameter should have this new description. And what I do up here is I'm just taking that dynamic JSON and putting it out into my temp folder. So whenever we run this and I go to my temp folder, there we go, and find dynamic texts. This is the one we are working with. And if we look at it, it's just the version. So we have a modified, a new description, and a modified. So let me keep that open, and let's go through what's actually happening here. So whenever we run this, the filter is not being called because it's not part of startup. It's part of whenever someone does a connection. So if we do a connection here, we get into our tools list. And what we could do is our request, if we just set request the next, we will get the tools as they are. But before that, we will just quickly grab our metadata. And the metadata we had in the JSON is just represented in these two records, the name, description, and the parameters. So whenever we grab this, it's essentially just the metadata we had in that JSON represented as code. So we have a description and we have a name. And then what we will normally do, or if we didn't have this list filter, it would do this. It would just call get all the tools, and we will see we had 3 tools with the fixed descriptions and the fixed extra data down in the input schema with the description here. But now we just go through each tool, and based on the tool's name, we find the metadata that we want to have for that tool. So in my case here, the tool number 1, I wanted to have that it was modified tool description. And for the parameters, I wanted to change parameter 1 to have new description of parameter. Description is easy. It's just saying tool.description, and we have that now. Parameters is a bit more difficult because on the tool as we see it right now, we will see that this is a JSON object, a JSON element. So we need to on the fly manipulate this JSON element, and we can do that. So we just take the JSON element and turn it into a JSON node. We then grab the properties of that node, and we go to our parameters. So we first find the parameter that is params number 1, and on the fly either change the description, or if there's no description, it will just add it onto it. JSON objects are nice that way. And once we have changed all the parameters, we now have an updated JSON. So it has the new description instead of the fixed description, and we just on the fly change the input schema. And once we have done that, the second tool gets a new description as well, where we do that here, but it doesn't have any parameters, so we just skip that part. And when we do this, now we got a timeout, but let me make it quickly. It's because a timeout is 1 minute. But if we do it like this, we can see that we got a modified description here and a new description for parameter 1, parameter 2, and so on. But now we can go to our file here that is the one that loaded this. We can't really change it for the user right now, which is already connected, because the dynamic, this system will not call tool list again and again. It will only call that once during connection. So we cannot help with this one if they just keep forever connected to our MCP server, but we can on the fly, if someone else connects, and write with change and cool. So if we do this and we disconnect and connect, remember this is the client, this is not our server being restarted, it's the client just reconnecting to our system, and we on the fly get the new changes down in our system while we didn't change anything for this tool. So now we can have our MCP server running, and whenever a new client connects, they will get what is in this file instead of the dynamic descriptions here, which we can essentially just take away now because they don't serve any value. But just for the sake of argument, I have them here so we can see that we are changing. But it's not like you need to put in dummy ones in order for this to work. It will on the fly figure that out. So that is everything Brian needs to have. And I definitely also want to use this myself around tools and things having more dynamic information instead of the way we do it right now. So with that, thank you for attending. See you in the next one.